Hello everyone and welcome to the next episode of Outside of Life, where I chat with inspiring artists and create various art-related videos. My name is Eva and my guest today is Mauricio Abril, and in this episode you will learn about his transition from molecular biology to art and how you can get a good feedback whether stories in your artworks work well.
If you're trying to have a piece that has a lot of story in it, try to show it to somebody and see if there's more than just one thing that they can say about it in terms of subtext, so that it's not so. Because if it's just one thing that they can pick out from it, then maybe there's more you can add to it.
After switching from molecular biology to art, Mauricio graduated from Art Center College of Design in entertainment design, and he has worked as a concept artist in animation, video games, theme park design, and illustration for clients such as Disney Interactive, Disney Imagineering, Universal Creative, Ubisoft, and Hasbro. Mauricio also teaches at CGMA and LA Academy of Figurative Art. So please welcome Mauricio Abril and let's get to the interview. So welcome everyone to the next episode of Outside of Life, and I'm super happy to have Mauricio here. Hi!
Hey everyone, thank you for having me, Eva. I appreciate it.
Oh, really, my pleasure. And let's just start right away with your background maybe, and you can tell us a bit more about like how you got to art and which were kind of the biggest turning points, where get you like now what you are doing.
Sure. So he was referring to the fact that I first studied science. I went to college and I graduated in molecular biology with the hopes of going to graduate school and pursuing a PhD. It wasn't until I finished college and actually my last year that I realized that I didn't want to do it. If anybody knows anything about a science or any field that requires a PhD, you shouldn't be doing it unless your heart and your soul is absolutely in it. It's very difficult. It requires a lot of sacrifice, a lot of years, and I realized that I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. I liked science, but I didn't want to go down that road. So what happened was I just decided, okay, I'm just going to graduate, finish my degree, and I had no plan. And so it wasn't until I just got a job that wasn't very exciting. I was doing quality control in a laboratory, and I just started drawing again. I used to draw as a kid. I never really studied or I never really took it seriously, but I always liked it. And so I started drawing again because I had the time. And then that slowly snowballed into maybe the idea that if I apply to art school, maybe I could try to go and do it professionally, like the full way. So that's kind of how it happened. I researched art schools at the time. And the thing is, this was back in the mid-2000s, so there were no resources available the way they are now with all of these online tutorials, podcasts, blogs, social media. None of that existed. So the only way I knew to be an artist was to go to art school. So I researched one that was nearby Los Angeles, which is where I was living. And it was called the Art Center College of Design. And I found that it was a very good school. So I spent a year and I took classes all around LA, public classes, figure drawing, figure painting, foundation classes, and I put together a portfolio. I applied, and that's kind of how it all started. So it was through boredom, essentially, that I became an artist.
And so did someone help you in the sense like, okay, maybe this school is good or that school, or did you have someone you look up to like, okay, maybe I want to be career-wise like this person in future?
Oh, I wish I could say I did. I have to admit, no, I didn't. Like I said, I had no idea what to do about art school or even becoming an artist. So I just, thankfully there was at least Google. And so I just Googled art schools, Los Angeles, and I found Otis College of Design. I found the Art Institutes, and I found Art Center. And so when I Googled Art Center, then I went to the Wikipedia of Art Center, I saw, oh, wow, like all of these like famous artists that I kind of recognized, they went to Art Center. So I'm like, oh, okay, it should be good. And I thought Pasadena's not that far. And so the more I researched it, the more I found out that it was a legitimately a good school.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, okay, I'm probably okay going here. And then it wasn't until I started that I realized, okay, this is definitely a proven institution. So in a way, I kind of, like I said, I did my research, but I lucked out that there were schools around me that I could go to.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I probably would have had to decide, okay, am I going to move somewhere or am I going to try to stay local?
And so, what kind of fascinated you about art? Was it more the characters, or color and light, or environments, or what was that you wanted to develop? Or was it the superheroes, or kind of what was the direction, or it kind of developed over time?
Probably superheroes. I'll be honest. When I was a kid, I had a dream of being a comic book artist, just like a lot of kids have, dreams. But so when I decided to look back into art school, I didn't know anything about artists. I didn't know what they did as a profession. I didn't know what they did as a career. The only thing that I knew was, okay, you could probably work for Disney drawing films, or you could probably and not even visual development. I mean, literally animating, or you could be a comic book artist. So that's the thing. When I started art school, I knew that I wanted to do something creative visually, but I had no idea what I would have done, and I didn't even know I'd be doing anything with computers. I thought I'd be learning, I'd be working completely in traditional media, pencils, inks, paints.
Yeah,
So,
and now
yeah.
your go-to thing is Photoshop, or do you also use different apps, or like Procreate with Apple Pencil, or something like that?
Go-to is Photoshop. I've only played around with Procreate on a friend's tablet before, but yeah, pretty much my default is Photoshop and sketching, pencil every now and then.
So what do you say it's your specialty? Is it the character design or the storytelling now, because you also made a book, or you also work on movies? And so what is your closest to your heart with the story-wise?
Yeah, so definitely I can say now, like what I believe my passion and my strength is in visual storytelling. So creating images that tell a story or that tell an emotion with characters. So it's not necessarily just character design or just environment. It's everything together. I really love pieces where there's multiple characters, and you can read something in that illustration.
And can you maybe give us some tips on maybe what is the best thing you learn about visual storytelling, or maybe what is something like that's not that great to do when you're trying to tell a story with one image?
Yeah, definitely. Let's see. That's a good question. Well, the way I tend to think about it is, if I have to think about one of my favorite visual storytellers, and that's Norman Rockwell, it's that there was a class I took, thankfully, in school. It was an academic class, so it wasn't anything about drawing or art. It was about art history, and it was that in his illustrations, especially the ones that are very story driven, not just maybe a simple vignette, but every detail of the composition is important. And even if it's a person's prop on their table, right? Like if it's somebody's, maybe there's a character you have and they have maybe a guitar or a horn or some musical instrument, right? It's not just enough to draw that as you might look it up. It's, what type of musical instrument? Is it dirty or is it scratched? Is it brand new? Because all of those things will be very important in communicating the story, and everything from the kind of wall in the room to the carpet to the bed, whatever it is you're showing. So definitely the story is in the details. And as far as anything not to do, I mean, I guess that could be a big list of things, but
Maybe
I would say
maybe something you used to do and then you found out maybe that's not the best. Is there something like that?
There definitely is. I just probably have to look at some of my old student work and be like, oh man, no. But what I can definitely say, at least the thing is, what I try to tell my students in the classes I teach is, if you're trying to have a piece that has a lot of story in it, try to show it to somebody and see if there's more than just one thing that they can say about it in terms of subtext, so that it's not so. Because if it's just one thing that they can pick out from it, then maybe there's more you can add to it.
Yeah, definitely. Because also, like, as you mentioned, the room, and if we have a character room and then there is, I don't know, science book on the table, so we might say, okay, maybe this character likes science. There can be a litter box for a cat. The cat doesn't even have to be there, and then you can already start a thing, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for me, art is as much about letting the viewer kind of have with it as much as me telling a specific story. So,
and your book about the dogs and the storytelling there, is it inspired maybe from your childhood, or where did you get the main inspiration for this story?
Sure, yeah. So the children's book, it was just an idea that I had. Actually, I had it before I even started art school. It was just an idea of having little dogs as a metaphor for, a lot of children's stories, they're about, kids, or they're about the idea that, you want something to change in your life, and somehow maybe you get it through magic, or maybe you get it through some experiment gone wrong. But the thing that I loved about when I looked at dogs is that they come in such a variety of sizes, everything from as small as a Chihuahua to a huge, Labrador, Doberman, or anything bigger than that. And the thing is, those small dogs will never grow to be big. And I thought, with a lot of us, we have things that we want to change, we wish we could change, but they'll never change. And part of it is just being okay with that, and just being okay with the idea that, okay, I'm not going to be taller, I'm not going to be 6 feet, I'm not going to, if you're born with some other difference, you're probably not, until science advances, have that changed. So it was just kind of more the idea of that. So it was really more of an adult thought. I had but infused with the themes of kind of just kid friendliness and childhood and just fun. Because that's what I've realized is found a lot is in a lot of my work. So that's kind of where it came from.
And so what was your experience with creating a book? Was it done through Kickstarter, or someone did the funding, or was it like ready for order, or how did you do that?
So I first created the book years ago, before even Kickstarter was probably an idea in the creator's head. I originally created the book because I was hoping to get it published by submitting it to publishers, and I found out that that's not as easy as people think it might be. And so I created the book, and I tried submitting it through formal channels, sending out query letters to agents, and nothing really happened. And then a couple of years passed by. I moved on. I just focused on other things, and then when eventually I thought about it, I said, you know what, like I need to do something with this book. I spent all this time, and it's just sitting in my hard drives. I printed a few dummy copies through like websites that print, single books, just so that I can show people. And so then I decided to do a Kickstarter. So that's how it happened. So I did my research. I spent a year studying. Not full time, but I spent a year since the time I decided to do a Kickstarter till the time I did it, and I studied successful campaigns. I studied similar campaigns. I asked my friends who had done some Kickstarters, and then that's how I got the funding. And so I had the book done, which I think helped, because in my video I stated the book is done. I showed a lot of samples, and I said this is just to help get it printed. And so then that's how I only raised enough money I needed just to get it printed.
Yeah, and so now, what do you mainly live from? Is it the money from the book, or it's the teaching, or it's the client work, or how do you combine your income streams?
Yeah, I wish I could live just from the book. No, if anything,
if you sell like million copies, or I don't know, like.
No, even with the book, no. I mean, if I just looked at the financials from the book itself, I would probably still be in the red. I would still be. I probably still spent more money on the book than than I've made off of it. No, what I live off of is my professional illustration work. So definitely clients. And I mean, I consider teaching professional work too, but it's definitely not full time. It's and I've only been teaching part time in a sense. I don't teach every quarter, and I don't teach full time every quarter. But yes, professionally, I'm a full time illustrator, concept artist. I work right now. I work freelance. I work from home, and I can speak to that. But in the past, I did have studio jobs where I was working, 5 days a week, 40 hours, pretty much.
And so how was the transition in kind of networking from one profession to another, right? Because you were not in the artistic field before. And so was most of your networking through school, or did you start like looking for agents after you were done with studying, or someone approached you?
Yeah, so definitely I would say school was the biggest kickoff. When my first day of art school, I knew nothing about art. I knew nobody in art. Had no idea. Like there wasn't any artists I could follow or know about. It was so yes, definitely. So that is one of the benefits of going to at least any kind of school. Is the internal networking, just making friends, and then through friends, I realized that that's what I learned a lot through, is just the passive conversations you have with people, just kind of talking during lunch, talking during dinner, talking while you guys are working on homework, talking in between classes, just, oh, have you heard about this thing? Or like, oh, do you know about this artist? It's really cool. And then that's how I kind of learned a lot about kind of, oh, how do you apply for internships? Or and then they also had a few resources in terms of helping students to apply for things, internships. Once you graduate, kind of how you should approach marketing yourself, or just trying to solicit work. So for me, that was through school, and I tell a lot of my online students that if you don't have the benefit of that, the best, I guess the next best thing would be to try to be a very friendly but not very friendly social networker online with a lot of the websites that exist, but just keep it to just in a very still very professional and in a non-obtrusive way, because like I get a lot of I've gotten a lot of young people, students all over the world who've written me asking me for advice or just things. I don't know, somehow they find me, like they've even referenced my change from science to art, and I write them all back with whatever they're asking for, whether it's like advice or something, and as so far, thankfully, cross my fingers, I've never had anybody do it in a rude or kind of a very off-putting way. So like I tell them, like, nowadays with the internet and social media, try to outreach to artists and try to just keep it short, keep it simple, ask for, some advice, try to be very direct in your questions. Like, don't leave it open-ended, like, how do I be an artist? Because it's hard to answer that, but, you may not get a response every single time. People are busy, they may not see it, but if you send out enough, you will. So that's probably the next best thing, to just trying to get help. And then those communities that exist, like ArtStation is a really good one that I would recommend, where it's kind of like social networking, but specifically for artists.
Yeah, because from my experience, what I saw around the ArtStation is more for like finished, more polished pieces. Then Instagram is like you can post also work in progress and other things. So what is your experience from different social media? So the ArtStation is kind of your favorite, or you are also more on Instagram? And because I found you on Instagram.
Right. No, that's true. That's a good question. And it's something that I guess I've learned through trial and error. And I think, I'm by no means a social media expert or anything. I mean, if anything, I kind of, because I'm a little older, like at least I grew up with the internet, but not with social media. So it's just, to me, social media is a lot of work. I just
It
want to
is,
draw,
it is.
I just want to draw. And so, but no, I enjoy it because obviously it allows us to share our work with, we see so much work that we'd never see before. But to answer your question, I would say that what my personal observations are is that, I have a Facebook art page, and that what I find is that Facebook is definitely a kind of mainstream catch-all platform. And it depends on also, I think one of your future questions might be about brand and kind of how you market yourself, but it also depends on how you're presenting yourself to the world. So
Yeah.
I feel like I've presented myself as art that people like, just in general, like little superheroes, and also a lot of families. So on Facebook, I have a lot of what I feel like I have a lot of fans who aren't really artists. I mean, there are, but the ones that I feel I engage with the most are just people who appreciate a nice image to look at in their feed.
Yeah.
And I get a lot of, family types, dads, moms talking about that stuff. And on Instagram, I feel like it's a mix of young artists who like art, as well as as well as family, just people who enjoy seeing the pretty pictures in their Instagram feed. Now, in ArtStation, that's much more industry focused. So yes, you are correct. Like, most people on ArtStation post finished stuff, and they might post in progress stuff if it's more about showing their process,
like
and less about,
portfolio, yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's not, oh, here's a rough doodle I did, this morning before my train or something like that. Instagram is definitely much more social, where it's people are like, oh, this is, me at the museum, or this is, this is just I'm really enjoying watching Stranger Things on Netflix, and here's a quick sketch of Elle, So it's and the one thing I've learned is that the way you present yourself will definitely affect how you use that platform, because if you kind of show yourself as like your stuff is mainly for artists, then people will respond to your stuff as in that way. But if you're just kind of showing, fun stuff that everybody likes, then you might have a little bit of a trickier time trying to get one thing across. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Because, so how do you keep your art kind of consistent? Is it by, using the color palettes, or the same, look and feel in digital techniques? Because, yes, the stories can be like communicated in a different ways. And so how do you kind of keep your audience, like focused, and this is like, okay, this is my art, or like they know right away, okay, this is from him?
Yeah, that's a really funny question for me, because I love experimenting, but you're right. I've learned through the last couple of years that I can't really post everything I do, and I don't, on every single social media platform, just because I know it won't. It'll it's funny to have to use the word, but it'll be off brand, even though it's me. Like. Because in the past, I would try to, I just really like learning. I like trying new paintings. I try to do different paintings or illustrations or drawings to practice as well. So I might try a different technique, or I might try a different subject matter. And I noticed, like I said, with my personal social medias, a lot of them are built around a very family friendly approach to art. Like, I have a lot of little kid superheroes in my work, and a lot of subject matter that's just very heartwarming. A lot of my fans that have seen me at conventions tell me that my art just makes them happy. So if I'm trying to do some really, dark and gritty, piece of concept art, it doesn't really blend well with the colorful superheroes. So you are correct. What I kind of tend to do is whenever I create a new piece, I ask myself, okay, am I gonna post this on Facebook and Instagram, or should I just leave this more for maybe Tumblr or ArtStation? And or maybe this doesn't go to ArtStation because this is too casual. This is just for Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah.
And so the way I keep it consistent is, I guess the thing is, I don't feel like my art is visually consistent as much as it's consistent in how I approach the tone of pieces. So even if I do something a little dark, there's the certain level of thought and care that goes into the composition.
Yeah, definitely, because that's important. And
Yeah.
when you finished the school, and did you do first internship, or was it more like you presented your portfolio to different studios? And because we didn't talk about the transition, how was your first step in the industry?
Yeah. Okay. So when I was in school, I applied for one internship thankfully there was an office at the school that accumulated open internships available, and then the student goes and gets that list, and then you can just apply directly. So I did do one internship while I was in school, but that I wouldn't say necessarily helped me in terms of a job right after, because that was a good experience. But then after I graduated, I got, funny enough, this was back in the early 2010s. When I graduated, my first professional job came online. Somehow they found me, and back then the only website that I had was Blogger.
Okay.
I didn't even have a professional, website. I just had my blog, and of course I think I had a portfolio blog in addition to my blog. The portfolio blog being a blogger that's just got your portfolio pages on it, not like your doodles. And so I don't necessarily know how those first people found me, but my first professional job came from that. But I would say though my what really helped was at my school, like I pretty much think all schools do this, for the graduating classes, they try to have some kind of professional like speed dating or round or kind of interview thing, so that these professional representatives can come and see the graduating students' work. So that's what I did, and that kind of, at least, it was kind of a huge room. You get like 3 minutes with every company, and you just move table by table. You say, hi, like, my name is so-and-so, this is my work. And then it's basically a chance for them to kind of get your card and see if they want to maybe follow up with you later. So that's kind of how it happened for me. But it was a mix of that, as well as having my blogger, my online presence up there somehow.
Oh yeah, because they also want to see, like, if they like your personality, not only the art, if they would be able to work with you, like,
Yeah, at least at first, they definitely probably would want to talk to you for an interview for at a later date for longer, just to make sure. But yeah, definitely it helps to put a face to the artist and kind of see how they.
Yeah, because if a person is like total jerk or like not behaving nicely or professionally, they would be like, even if the art is amazing, they might be like, maybe not.
Well, I would say, if anything, the one thing I think that I could that might be helpful to others is, it's rare that I've seen too many people come off as jerks in those little quick moments. Because for one of my companies that I used to work for, I went and did interviews on the other side of the table. It's what's more common is artists' inability to present themselves well and to communicate their work clearly. A lot of them, a lot of the people that they might have some really nice work, but then they're just really quiet. They don't really know how to sell their work, or to how to just kind of talk me through their process. And it's just unfortunate. I don't know if that is just part of what the personality type that a lot of artists have, because I consider myself an introvert for sure. I think as an artist, I like the fact that I think my personality is suited to wanting to work on one task for hours on end. Not everybody has that, but at the same time, I learned early on in school that, actually more so in science. When I was in science, I had to do presentations, and science is half communicating what you've discovered and convincing the other scientific experts in the world that you are right. So
you know what you're talking about.
exactly. So actually, I have to credit that. And when I was at UCLA, that's where I went. I was part of a science program for undergraduates that forced us to do one presentation every quarter. And we would get up in front of our peers and sometimes faculty, and we would maybe take a research paper that was current, and we would have to read it, understand it, and then present that paper to everybody else. And we'd have to get up in front of an audience and talk and be clear and professional sounding. And that, unfortunately, a lot of artists don't have, and that can mean the difference between impressing somebody or just kind of being like, oh, well, I like that person's work, but we don't really we don't know if they'll be too, it's not that anybody will think bad of it, but when they meet somebody else who has a similar work and then they come off, just more confident and more clear, it'll be easier to pick them over unfortunately.
Yeah, so it's more about explaining why you made choices about the artworks, what was your thinking behind it, and why is it like that?
Yeah, definitely, and just coming off very, I guess, social in how you're doing it too. But you're absolutely right. It is about at least communicating your thought process clearly, because if you ask somebody, oh, how did you, what were you looking at that led you to design this way, and they can't really say, then it doesn't help when you're trying to maybe work with somebody who has to do a lot of independent research.
Yeah, because when you're working for a company or basically for whoever, then you are given some task, and then you have to have some thinking process, some research, and then you have to apply it somehow, so it has to have some sense or reasoning, right?
Definitely.
And so if we go maybe back to your the career, is there something you wish you knew before you started the whole switch and the artistic journey?
I was looking at that question that you had sent me as part of some of the possible topics, and I was like, oh, that's a good one, because I actually had to think about this, and so I actually wrote it down. Because a lot of the other topics I thought, oh yeah, I can say I know what my answer might be, but for that one, I would probably have to say that I wish I knew that the time spent developing your foundation is the most important time as an artist, and you can't really get that back, because then you're going to be spending a lot of time playing catch up. So what I mean by that is, a lot of artists, and I think unfortunately nowadays, because this is the bad side of the internet, or not the bad side, but I guess one of the different aspects of it is we're aware of a lot, right? We see there's a lot of art of books that show the process of design, and a lot of artists' blogs and YouTube channels and Patreon, and I think I know that if I was learning art now, it'd probably be very hard for me to be patient with my progress, and I might want to skip ahead to being like, oh, I want to start drawing characters, or I want to start, doing these entertainment pieces, or I might want to start, one of my favorite artists draws these really cool characters with interesting shapes and these big eyes, and I want to learn that, and they kind of maybe skip or don't really do their foundation as intensely as they should. So and this is just me, I'm sure every artist has their own opinion, and none of us are entirely right. I think all of us have some logic, but if I had younger me now as a mentee, I would force my younger self to just spend 2 years, if they can, financially, and just, but if my younger self had a job doing something, and I'd say spend 2 years just learning to draw and paint traditionally. Don't worry about entertainment, don't worry about comics, don't worry about concept art. Just learn how to draw, learn how to paint, and learn just the fundamentals, so that your hand and your eye and your intuition is really good, because then you take that foundation and you apply it to entertainment, you apply it to visual development, you apply it to environment design, then you'll just be so much ahead of the curve. But what happens is I think too many people try to do all of that at once. They try to take a basic drawing class, but then they're also taking an environment class, and so everybody's getting better, but it's not as efficient as it could be. And so that's what I wish I would know, that I would. And the thing is, when I was in school, it's not so much that my problem wasn't that I spent too much time focusing on entertainment stuff.
Yeah.
It's just that I didn't really take my foundation time as intense as I would have liked. Like I would have, because what happens is in art school, it moves very fast. The first year is just, at least when I went, it was just traditional stuff, and it started to include some digital stuff. And then right after, it's like we're done with the traditional drawings. And I saw it. Some of my friends, they didn't really spend a lot of time practicing their figure drawing, like just in a room with a naked model with their charcoal pencils on a big pad of paper. And then when it came time to drawing, and then it's like, okay, now all of a sudden we're in classes where the assignments are draw, come up with a visual development piece with these characters. And now all of a sudden we're trying to design characters, but you don't really have the figure drawing background to do it well. And then you're just kind of struggling on both ends. So what I wished I would have done, what I wish somebody would have told me is said, hey, after your first year, you're not going to have time to really practice drawing because you're going to have so much other homework. Yeah. So really just spend all your time drawing in your first year. And then I would have enjoyed that. And so that's kind of my kind of general advice is don't rush, kind of be patient. We all learn at different rates. If you're an artist, a young artist, and your friend is, getting really good at something, it might just take you a little longer, and that's okay. But it'll hurt you later if you kind of skip ahead, or if you think, oh, I'm good. I think I should move on.
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's fine.
Yeah.
And have you ever felt like lost or kind of, okay, what is the next step, or something like struggles, where like, okay, am I doing the right choice? Or have you ever had something like this?
Are you talking about
like the artistic journey, career? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I would have to say that when I was in school, I had a lot of I never really had any serious doubts, and that might have been more so because I tend to have a lot of, I'm an optimist, so I kind of realized, okay, and in a way where it's, there's that classic line in Star Wars where Han Solo says, never tell me the odds. It's kind of like, in a way, it's that ignorance is bliss. Like when I was in school, I really I probably should have been more worried. I probably should have been more scared, because it's the idea that, okay, I'm going to this really expensive school because nowadays, and back then, but not just art center, a lot of these art schools are really expensive. And it's the idea that, wow, I'm taking out all of these loans to pursue a career. There's not, there's no guarantee, but of course with any degree, there's almost like no guarantee that you'll be successful. It's that, I should have been a little bit more afraid, but I guess I kind of just blocked that voice out of my head. And I thought, well, it'll somehow work out. Like, as long as I'm keeping on track of my progress, as long as I do the work, something will happen. So I would probably, I wouldn't necessarily say that there was anything more than that, but I think sometimes a little blind faith helps when it comes to your own success. Like, it's like, okay, so things will work out. Just I don't know how, but things will somehow.
That's a really good approach because like a lot of people are worrying about a lot of things and yeah, so if you think about it like how positive it will be or you can imagine actually the positive outcome, it might help, to persuade
Yeah,
your mind.
for sure. And the one thing to add to that is, it wasn't just blind, optimism. It was it's kind of like you have to meet it halfway. You have to make sure that you're doing the things that you feel are on the right track. So it's not just a lot of, and this is I think for any education, any degree, it's a lot of students think that schools are designed to give them everything, and they're not. I mean, in a way, to be honest, schools are kind of designed to run as financial institutions to operate, at least to keep existing. So if you just go to a school and you just take the classes that they tell you to take, and you expect after graduation somehow somebody's going to give you a job or some kind of work, that's very, very, it's just unrealistic. And so regardless of the school, because like in my experience at Art Center, it was, I not only just went to classes, but I didn't just take the classes that they made me take. I looked at the curriculum and I thought, okay, well, I spoke to other students who were older than me and who said, oh, you should take this class. If you take this class, you can replace it with this class, or you can, take it instead of this class, or don't take that teacher. That teacher is not, as good as this teacher. So then I was very proactive with my education, and then I was very proactive with, okay, well, let me go talk to faculty and maybe ask what advice they might have for putting together my portfolio or to apply somewhere. So you kind of definitely have to I definitely think you should have that blind optimism, but also meet it halfway and do a lot of the legwork yourself, because you kind of have to. The schools aren't going to do it for you.
Yeah, definitely, because you need to do the work and then be open for opportunities, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And if you can share maybe some of your current projects or something maybe which is not confidential, and maybe what would be your dream scenario in 5 to 10 years? What are your projects you would like to work on?
Let's see. Professional projects. Let's see. I know that I can at least say that I've done some things for Disney Imagineering. Disney Imagineering is the division of Disney that does the design for all their parks and kind of experience, like cruise lines and anything like that. So I've done some designs for Imagineering that are kind of very cool, futuristic kind of things. I can't say too much more than that, but if you are a fan of Disney and you go to one of the parks eventually, there's a good chance that there'll be a lot of the kind of next generation things that you'll be seeing. I might have one or two of them might have been I might have worked on. And then let's see, I'm not quite. I just recently finished a cover illustration for a publisher that does fantasy fantasy novels. It's a popular series. I don't know if I should. If I can
it is confidential, then rather skip that and let's go to the future project.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, 5 to 10 years. That's a good question. I would just love to continue being a freelancer and working on just cool, interesting projects. For me, what I love about freelance is the variety that I get. It reminds me a lot about being in school, where you have different classes every quarter, and each class is very different, and they require a different final or a different midterm. And but as far as personal aspirations is, I'd love to continue. I have so many more story ideas. It's hard to find the time to fully write them and then illustrate them. So I'd love to, at least, let's say in 5 years, I'd love to at least have 2 more books out for myself. Just even self-published, I don't care. And so, yeah, that would probably be that.
Yeah, or maybe make an animation from your story as well, or have a card game, board game, all of that.
Yeah, whatever happens, I'd be open to any of that.
That would be perfect. And then you might be also teaching maybe more online or where people can reach you even more.
Yeah, for sure. I'll be teaching again next term for CGMA, which is an online
Hmm.
school that has concept classes and traditional classes. It's all online. So what I love about that is I get to interact with students from all over the world. So it's a cool experience. So yeah, I'd love to keep doing that.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, so we can put also the link so our audience can find you. Yeah, when they are fan of your art, so they can just go directly to your classes.
Oh, sure. Thank you.
And what about like really far future and like 100 years or more? What would you like to be remembered for? You know, the epic
Oh,
question.
wow. Yeah, that's a wow. That's a really good question. Yes, after I would probably, yeah, it'd have to be the books. Like I would love to, even the thing is I've learned that, you have as artists, I think we all have big dreams and aspirations and and there's only so much we can control about that, right? You can create a graphic novel, you can maybe make a little animatic, you can create a children's book, you can self-publish it, you can go to conventions, sell copies, but it may not go any further than that. And you have to be okay with that. So I would say, what to me, ideally, yeah, I'd love it if I created a story and somehow some big studio wanted to buy it and say, we want to turn this into a TV show or something. Sure, that'd be great. Like, you know, I've met a lot of people who that's happened to, and it's actually been more of a nightmare than a dream come true. Because and I've read a lot of interviews with show creators who feel like their show is not their vision anymore. So,
Mm.
of course, I'd love to like have you know, a show based on a book. Whether or not that's, a be careful what you wish for scenario, I don't know. but but what I would love is to even if I can publish a book and it at least gets published as that, whether it becomes a movie or TV show, that doesn't matter. But if it at least exists the way I envisioned it to exist, that would probably be cool. So then, if somebody ever Googled me 100 years from now, that book would come up. Like that would be pretty cool.
Oh yeah, that sounds really good. You know, like it just pops up and then like there are a lot of stories and stuff related to it.
Yeah, yeah, even if it's just available to buy, I mean, yeah, it would be great if I created a subculture, but if that's probably I'm trying to think of like realistic goals. Like, yeah, if you could just buy,
Optimistic, right?
yeah, for sure, no, definitely. But yeah, if I could just have a book that somebody can buy that I published that exists, that would be probably enough for me.
And do you have maybe some favorite books you can recommend? Like maybe you would give as a gift to someone?
Yeah, are you talking about like story books or art books?
Doesn't matter. What is your like favorite book maybe which is like, okay, you have to read this. Changed my life.
Oh wow. Um, well, I would probably say one of my. I was thinking about that. One of my nonfiction favorite books is a book called How to Get Ideas, and I'm forgetting the name of the author right now. I really apologize to the author. It's on my shelves somewhere, but it's called How to Get Ideas, and it's written so well and so fun that you can read it like that, and it just helps. I feel like it would help anybody with like creative blocks, or just who have like seeds of ideas but don't really maybe necessarily know how to develop them further. And as far as other books, I know I'm probably coming off. I'm like super embarrassed. I can't think of any right now off the top of my head. I know I have plenty. Probably Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. I'm a huge kind of golden age of illustration fan, so the NC Wyeth illustrations kind of help me with that. But I also enjoy kind of pirates and that kind of history. So, but yeah, I'd probably have to say I'll probably have to leave it at that until I can think of anything else.
Yeah, so if you remember anything later on, we can always put it in the show notes afterwards.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
And yeah, before we say goodbye and like finish the interview, maybe you can share last piece of advice or key takeaway, and then we will like slowly finish.
Sure. Let's see. I guess that's a good one. I would I was thinking about this as well, because you had mentioned that in regards to career, and I'd probably have to say that it's important for people, for students, I'd probably have to reiterate the idea of definitely for anybody out there who's young or maybe even if they're not so young, but they want to kind of transition to art or just develop their art for themselves, even if it's just a hobby. Definitely be patient. It's not a race. And the way you learn is as much about how much time you spend and how efficient that time is. Just because you spent 10 hours on Saturday drawing isn't as good if you spent 2 hours, but you really focus and you really analyze what you're doing. But the other big thing is, I would say never make a big life decision that if somebody else tells you that it's the right thing for the career, because that kind of happened with me in one of my first jobs. Is people were telling me, oh, if you want to be a creative director, you need to do this and you need to do that. And I thought, okay, cool. And they were right. If I wanted to become a creative director, I needed to do those things. But then I realized that all the things that they were telling me, I just didn't like. They weren't interesting to me. They weren't, they were asking me to basically make career moves that would lead me towards being a creative director. But I didn't realize that I could say no because that's not what I wanted. And I didn't necessarily know that I didn't want that until I kind of was in the middle of it. So I would say definitely do your research as much as possible for anything, whether it's going to a school or whether it's you're going to take some classes, or you want to possibly apply somewhere. As much research as you can. And ask, oh, should I take this opportunity? Should I take this class? Should I, go to this school? So as much, and if you have a gut instinct, if you have a gut feeling about it that it's maybe not right, then I would probably trust it. If you did your research.
Yeah. It's like what is happening in the world and see like what you might like, or at least like step by step see what you don't like.
Yeah, I mean, and half of that will be developed by experience. So in a way, there's, don't beat yourself too much if you take if you do something, and you're like, oh, I shouldn't have signed up for this, or I should have taken that job over this job, or but so don't be too hard on yourself either.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree, and thank you so much again for joining us here.
Sure. No, thank you for having me. I hope your audience has enjoyed it and gotten something out of it too. So I really do.
I'm sure they enjoyed it, and thanks again, and thanks everyone who joined, and see you in the next episode.
All right.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you being here, and if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe because I post new videos every week. I will be also super happy if you let me know your thoughts in comments and give the video a thumbs up. You can find all the resources mentioned in this episode at artsideoflife.com. Just type a guest name in the search bar. There is also a couple of free artist resources ready for you. So if you want to listen to the interviews on the go too, make sure to check out the podcast at artsideoflife.com/podcast. Continue to inspire each other, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye!